Hello everyone, this is Genius Yoshi, and today we're going to be reviewing the steel cards from Lorcana Rise of the Floodborn. Let's go quickly over the star rating. First, 5-star, actively want to play this card, it's amazing, I really like it. 4, solid card, I'm going to be including it in lots of decks. 3, I'll play it if I have to, it might be fun as a side project here and there, a flex spot in my deck. 2, it's kind of a bad card and yeah, we really shouldn't be playing this. And 1 star, well, we're talking steel, right? There's no bad cards in steel. Alright, so let's just start with the ratings. Here we have Beast, Forbidding Recluse. An inkable 4-drop, 3/4, quest for 1, super scary card, with the ability, when you play this character, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. So, stats-wise, he's okay. He's a little weak on the questing side, questing only for 1, but 3/4 is respectable for a 4-drop. Pinging something for 1 can be okay. I mean, it punishes the opponent for playing 1 toughness character. You can also combo it with something like Beast Relentless, so double Beast for double success. But people are already prepared to tank Tinkerbells and grab your sword, or at least they think they are, but it's just so much damage that no one's really prepared for that. You really have to be prepared to prevent board wipes, right? So the Forbidden Recluse is decent. It's probably a nice flex spot in your deck. You play a couple of copies, and if that ping for 1 comes in handy, suddenly, bam, you drop the Forbidding Recluse, you ping something to that, and you're happy about playing it. And for the rest of the time, well, just throw it into the ink pool and you haven't really lost anything. So I'm going to give this card a 3-star rating. Solid stats, decent effect, inkable, what's not to like? Here we have Beast, Selfless Protector, 2/8 for 6, inkable, quest for 1. So stats wise, that's a lot of willpower for a 6-drop. And that's very low power for a 6-drop. In terms of ability, shield another whenever 1 of your other characters would be dealt damage. Put that damage counter on the Beast instead. Which means that you can't put resist on Beast and then tank the damage and apply resistance. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. So this card you're playing once you have a good field, and I don't know, this effect is not optional. If it was optional, it would be interesting with something like a Cusco. The opponent challenges Cusco and suddenly you're like, am I tanking? Am I banishing your character? Am I putting the damage on my Beast? But no, damage automatically goes to Beast. So the opponent just has to challenge your weakest combative character and they'll take out your 6-drop. Which feels bad. I mean, yeah, it's nice to protect your cheaper characters, but don't you want to protect your investment into a 6-drop? I think I do, and I'm not liking this card. I prefer the common Beast to the super rare Beast, as I'm going to attribute this one a 2-star rating. Next we have Beast, Tragic Hero, 3rd time's the charm, right? He's a 5-drop inkable, 3/5 legendary, quest for 2, and he has shift 3, so you can play him just a little bit faster. Okay, what's his ability? At the start of your turn, if he has no damage, draw a card. That's real nice. Otherwise, he gets +4 this turn. Being E7, 5 for 5, questing for 2, very good stats. But I don't really want to be paying for that. What I want to be paying is for a 3/5 2-quester that draws me a card every turn. And that is very, very good. So as long as you can keep him just sitting in the back, drawing you some cards, you're in good shape. And then if you need some removal, you get him angry, and then suddenly you start bashing the opponent's characters. So you need to survive. You need Beast Tragic Hero to survive a turn without taking damage. And since he enters play unexerted, it's honestly not that hard to do, unless the opponent's playing some Tinkerbells and some ping ones, which they really need to deal with the Tragic Hero. So overall, I think this is a very strong card. Drawing a card per turn with solid stats, what's not to like? I'm going to give this card a 4-star rating. We now have a very nice inkable 5-drop in steel. Next up we have Benja, Guardian of the Dragon Gem. 2/3 for 3, quest for 2. With the ability, when you play this character, you may banish chosen item. Now we already have the Beast Hard-Headed as a 4/4/4/5 with that ability. And it's good. Having the ability 2 full ink cheaper on a character with okay stats is just very good. This card just power crept Beast Hard-Headed, and that card was seeing play. So Benja is a very nice flex slot inclusion, very nice sideboard card against item decks. If you need to take out a mouse armor, you're playing Benjas. If you need to take out a magic mirror, a pocket watch, I mean, getting a 2/3 for 3, questing for 2, +1, just boom, sniping that item is extremely good. And Benja I'll be playing a few copies of Benja in pretty much any deck that plays steel from now on. It's just really good. Here we have Chief Bogo, the respected officer, 2/4/4/4, quest for 2. Whenever you play a Floodborn character, bam, Tinkerbell. Deal 1 damage to each opposing character. The effect is pretty good. If you have enough Floodborn characters in your deck, then Chief Bogo can deal a bunch of damage multiple times. Not to mention, 2/4 quest for 2, 4/4 drop is very reasonable stats. I don't like the fact that he's uninkable, but if you're trying to play some kind of Floodborn tribal deck, then Chief Bogo is your guy. I mean, look at him with the sunglasses. He's ready to roll. The problem is all the Floodborn characters are super expensive, so it's going to be hard to trigger that ability very often, but even just one trigger can pay quite well. So I'm going to give him a 3-star rating. I'd prefer if he was inkable, I'd prefer if we had cheaper Floodborns, but for now, he's probably one of the better characters with that style of ability. We have Cinderella, the Knight in Training, a 2/2 for 2, inkable, quest for 1, somewhat poor stats line, but she's inkable, and she has courage. Whenever you play this character, you may draw a card, then choose a card, and discard that card. So it's very similar to Simba. Actually, she's the 2-drop equivalent of Simba. You get 1 more combat power for the extra ink. Not great. So as a standalone card, I don't like Cinderella that much. She does allow you to cycle some of these non-inkables that are stuck in your hand into more inkable or playable targets. Allows you to dig a bit deeper into your deck, but that's about it. Now, she does have a very nice shifting target. So because of that, I think that she's going to get included in a lot of decks, but mostly as a shift target that has a decent ability. But as a standalone card, I'm going to give her a 3-star rating, noting that she's probably going to be played more than a 3-star card. And that is the shifting target, Cinderella Stout-Hearted, a 5/5 for 7, inkable, quests for 3. That's a decent stat line. High costed inkable, we like it. Shift for 5, and she has resist 2. And whenever you play a song, this character may challenge ready characters this turn. Now there's a lot to discard. First off, the stats line and the shift remind me of Aladdin. That's actually pretty good in Ruby Amethyst right now, except Cinderella gives that ability to steal. She has an even better stat line because of that resist 2. And resist 2 means fire the cannon does nothing. Grab your sword doesn't touch her. Any combat, she takes 2 less damage. She can just fight and fight, and if the opponent counters, that's 2 less damage, 2 less damage. So she's more like a 5/9 for 7 with that resist 2 ability. And the singing sword, the fact that you can challenge ready characters means that they're no longer invincible. It means you can take out a Cusco because you're allowed to challenge him. You're not targeting him with a song. Cinderella Stout-Hearted just goes, boom, I fight you, and then I die because of Cusco's ability. So probably not the best example, but Cinderella Stout-Hearted is pretty strong. I think she's going to make a lot of steel decks as another option to Tinkerbell as the top end of the curve, or maybe even go with Tinkerbell as the top end of the curve. She's not meta breaking, but she's as strong as Aladdin, and that says something, if not stronger. So 4-star rating it is, and looking forward to seeing her in some lists. Here we have Donald Duck, Deep Sea Diver, 6/5 for 5, Inkable, Quest for 1. He's a reverse Cerberus. Cerberus being a 5/6, Quest for 1 for the same cost. Cerberus is a better option. And when you have a common that's outpacing you in the same ink, it's not a good sign. So I'm going to give Donald Duck a 1-star rating. Although Cerberus has seen some play, but I think those days are about over now. And sorry Donald, not this time. Next up we have Elie LaBouffe, Big Daddy, 2/5 for 4, Inkable, Quest for 2, vanilla character. What's good going around him? I don't know. I mean, he has a cup of tea, he's nowhere near ready for battle, he's just ready to sit in binder and enjoy his bagel. Actually, let me know in the comments below. What do you think Elie LaBouffe is eating on that card art? Goofy, Knight for a Day, a 10/10 for 9, Inkable, Quest for 4. This character is all about stats. All stats, armor, the big sword, but no content. And my problem with this card is it's removed just as easily as any other card. I mean, Dragon Fire, Be Prepared, Let It Go, you name it. It removes it. And so 10/10 may be nice, but as a 9-drop, I'm expecting at least the power level of the Maleficent Dragon, who just eats Goofy for breakfast. Even your armor is not good enough to face a dragon. And I thought the purpose of Knight was to fight dragons. I'm a little confused. Now, he does have pretty good stats. If there's some revival mechanism in the future, play Maleficent. I'm going to give this card a 1-star rating. He costs too much, and that breaks him for me. Next up, we have Hercules, the Divine Hero, 6/3 for 6, Inkable, Quest for 2, Shift 4. So you can play him on top of cheaper Hercules, and he has Resist 2. Now Resist 2 is pretty good, but Resist is pretty good when you have a lot of toughness. 3 willpowers, not much really. So you don't need to go past that resistance very often to take down the Divine Hero. And for a 6-drop, that's disappointing. If he had 4 or 5 willpower, he'd be actually pretty good. But we have Cinderella for that as the 5/5 resist 2 with positive ability. So I feel like Hercules just falls short of Cinderella in many ways. Resist 2 is pretty strong, and so is Hercules. But on this card, I don't know. Feels like he falls short for me. Resist 2 is great, but needs a bit more willpower. Next up, we have Hercules, Hero in Training. Love the artwork. I think it's really fun. But the card itself has a 2/3 for 2, Quest for 1, is pretty weak. And he's meant to be a shifting target for the Hercules that I don't like. So, I'm sorry, Hercules. Love the character, but not those cards. 1-star rating for you, my friend. Here we have Jafar, Dreadnought, a 3/4 for 4, Inkable, Shift 2, Quest for 1. Stats-wise, okay. Ability, during your turn, when he banishes another character in a challenge, you may draw a card. That's a good ability. That's a very good ability. It's not an enter the battlefield, but he has enough stats to take down something in combat. And even if he perishes during that combat, you're still going to draw the card. If you can trigger that ability twice, you're in business. Actually, if you can trigger it once, you're still in a decent spot, since you've just traded a decently sized character with one of your opponents and gotten a card out of it. So I like the Dreadnought, and the Shift 2 allows you to have the element of surprise. Of course, there aren't that many Jafars so far, so the opponent's probably not going to be surprised, since he's the main reason to play the smaller Jafar. But just as a standalone card, it's okay. I mean, you can give him resist with a mouse armor, give him boost with some support, and suddenly you're almost guaranteed to trade him for a card, which is pretty nice. I'm going to give this card a 3-star rating because, well, you still need that combat to go right. Needs a bit of support, and yeah, it's not It's not an auto-inclusion, it's just a fine card. Speaking of Jafars, we have the Royal Vizier here. 3-2 for 2, inkable, and he can challenge evasive characters. And he's the shifting target for the Dreadnought Jafar, which is the main reason to play it. But this Jafar actually has a nice niche use case. Because he can challenge evasive characters, and he has 3 power, he's just in that nice spot where he can be a cheap threat that can take out the Emerald Tinkerbell, he can take out Pongo, he can take out that new Minnie Mouse that's evasive for 3. And he just trades nicely with all of those and just survives the combat against a 3-drop. And he's punching above his weight against evasives. So if you're having trouble against evasive decks, splash a couple of Jafars in your sideboard or maybe even in your main deck as your flex spots. Jafar, with 3 power, you can take out most 2 or 3 drops. So you can just do fair trades with him, which is okay. So because of his use case against these evasive threats and the shifting potential for the Dreadnought, I'm going to give him a 3-star rating. There are some uses for him. Next up, we have Kronk, Junior Chipmunk. 4-5 for 6, inkable, quest for 2. Whenever his character banishes another character in a challenge, you may deal 2 damage to chosen character. So far, what I've described is Tinkerbell, except Tinkerbell has that amazing enter the battlefield where she pings everything for 1. Kronk has resist 1. And resist 1 on a 5 toughness character is actually pretty good. I think he's probably slightly beaten by Tinkerbell. I think Tinkerbell still is worth more than Kronk, but if you want to include more 6-drops with that ability, Kronk is still a fine inclusion in your deck. I mean, there's not that big of a difference between Tinkerbell and Kronk. Resist 1 is pretty good, but I still think he's beaten by Tinkerbell, especially since Tinkerbell can shift. And because of this, I'm going to give him a 3-star rating, simply because there's a better option out there. But otherwise, he's pretty good. Limited, pick up this card. It's pretty strong. Next up, we have Lawrence, the Jealous Manservant. He's 0-4 for 3, inkable, quest for 2 with the ability, while he has no damage, he gets +4. So, this is a 4-4 quest for 2 that loses all his power when he takes damage. A 4-4 for 3 that quests 2. That's a lot of stats on a 3-drop. He's almost guaranteed to punch above his weight, get a good combat in, and with 4 willpower, he's probably going to survive. So you can quest with him, and the opponent doesn't really want to challenge him because they'll lose the combat. And then later in the game, while you pick a good fight, take out an opponent's character, and they still have to fight Lawrence back. And if you have healing, then he can stay 4-4. That's really good. I think this is worth a 4-star. And it's a very nice 3-drop in most decks that want a big beater, that want lore. And, well, those are the main things that you want in Lorcana. So, 4-star for the uncommon. We have the Mentor of Mulan, Li Shang, Archery Instructor. A 3-6 for 5, inkable. It's a good start. Quest for 2. Whenever he quests, your characters gain evasive. That's disappointing as an ability. It means your characters can, if your other characters can fight evasive characters on the other side of the board. So he's almost a vanilla 3-6 for 5, which is subpar. Actually, I've rated a 6-5 1-star earlier. So unfortunately, Li Shang, you're going in the 1-star pile. Go back to training, please. Next up, we have Magic Droom's Industrial Model. Love the name, love the idea behind it. It's an inkable 3-drop, 2-3. Whenever you play this character, chosen character gains resist 1 for a full turn cycle, so until your next turn. And quest for 1. So resist 1 as a one-time thing is not great. Having it on Mouse Armor, for example, giving you resist 1 turn after turn is actually very good. But just the one-time thing, not overly great. Even if this quested for 2, I'd say, not great. Now, it is another broom, so the Wayward Sorcerer now has a second friend, and if you can cast the magic brooms at a discount, it becomes a 2/3 quest for 1 for 2 with benefits. Well, honestly, it's not that great still. So, as a standalone card, it's mostly bad. And with synergies with the Wayward Sorcerer, I am going to give it a 2-star rating because, well, Mickey Mouse Sorcerer, who doesn't like that? I mean, it just sounds like fun. Next up, we have Namari, Morning Mist. 2/4 for 4, non-inkable, quest for 1 with Bodyguard. So far, not great. 2/4 slightly weak stats. 4 willpower is a nice thing, but she really needs a bit of combat boost to win some of her combats. She has the ability Blades. She can challenge ready characters anytime. That's a very, very strong ability. Now, her stats are a little low, and the Bodyguard feels out of place, to be honest. I'd rather get an extra power and lose Bodyguard on the card. But it's still quite decent. With a bit of support, maybe a bit of healing, she can act like the Elsa tree drop that keeps the opponent's characters just exerted. She's one of the only ways to deal with a non-exerted awarded character, because you can still challenge them with Namari. And because of that specialty, I think she deserves a 4-star rating as a nice inclusion to deal with these ready characters. She has her pick. The opponent is never safe from your Namari, and they need to walk around eggshells based on what they're playing. And they can't play that little Stitch as a shift target. Namari's going to take it out. And a lot of these cards that typically feel safe are no longer safe, which is where Namari shines. And if you can give her maybe resist 1, a little bit of more power, she becomes a threat to be reckoned with. And yeah, I really like the Morning Mist. Next we have Pacha, the Village Leader, a 4/8 for 6 inkable, quest for 2. Lots of stats on this dude, but he's competing with Tinkerbell and the likes, and for a 6-drop you need to do more than just bring stats to the board, so I'm going to give him a 1-star rating and move on. Next up we have Prince Naveen, the Penniless Royal, 4/3 for 3 inkable, quest for 1. Stats aren't that impressive, vanilla character, 1-star bin. Next we have Queen of Hearts, Capricious Monarch, 5/6 for 7, quest for 1 with the ability Off with Their Heads, the classic sentence from the Queen of Hearts. That means that she gets to quest often for 1, which is a bit weak, or she gets to challenge and then banish a character, and then challenge again, and then hopefully banish a character again, and just keep on challenging again and again. This seems similar to Beast Relentless, except he quests for more, and it's whenever damage is dealt, which can trigger a lot more often than when you're banishing opponent's character, and he's cheaper. All that to say, Queen of Hearts isn't that impressive, so I'm going to give her a 2-star rating. Like, even cheaper options like Tinkerbell just outclass her, even if they were cost for cost, and Queen of Hearts costs more. So, back to the binder you shall go. Robin Hood, Capable Fighter, 1/3 for 2, non-inkable, quest for 1, and you can exert him and just ping something for 1. Just shoot an arrow and, well, slightly damage them. Now, using his ability means you're not questing. So Hans, if you compare this card to Hans actually quests and gives you lore while pinging something. He also does damage on the swing back because he's 3/3, but he costs a lot more. What I don't like about Robin Hood is that he's non-inkable, and that means that I have to play my Capable Fighter. It's not a card that I always want to play. The ping for 1 is situational. A lot of times you're going to be in a situation where you're like, haha, I can ping you for 1. Okay, counterattack, trade with Robin. or fight Robin and live to tell the tale because I'm a 3/3. I don't need a fancy ability like pinging for 1. I just take you out, Robin. So I think Robin's okay, but not great. Actually, I've tried playing with him on a live stream, and I was disappointed. So I'm going to give Robin Hood, Keepable Fighter, a 2-star rating. It'd be higher if he was inkable. I think he's just not as good as he reads. Next we have the Huntsman, Reluctant Enforcer. 1/1 for 2, quests for 2. With the ability, whenever this character quests, you may draw a card and choose and discard a card. Now, that ability I prefer on Simba or Cinderella as an enter the battlefield effect. You play the character, you get the effect, guaranteed. What I don't like about the Huntsman is that he's pingable. Anything with 1 willpower is very vulnerable to Robin Hood, Tinkerbell, Hans, you name it, anything takes it out. Even a Grandma Tala can challenge it. So, that's problematic. But he is a 2-quester that quests for 2, and they are not to be dismissed completely. I mean, LeFou was playable as an Amber 1/2 quest for 2, and really, the 1/1 is not that easier to take out. They're both very easy to take out, really. So if you can protect the Huntsman with a bodyguard, for example, then you can quest for 2 and get a bunch of card selection. It might not be so bad. But overall, I'm not a big fan, so I'm going to give him a 3-star rating. If you can protect him, he can be good. Mostly because he's an early 2-quester. And I don't think we have other ones in Steel. The other ones, well, we have Aladdin, but Aladdin's weaker than Huntsman. Huntsman feels like an upgrade. So yeah, 3-star rating for our Reluctant Enforcer. Here we have the Prince Who Never Gives Up. A 1/3 for 3 inkable, quest for 2 with bodyguard and resist 1. Alright. So we do have a comparable right now with the first chapter with Hercules, who's 3/3 for 3, quest for 1, bodyguard. I think the prince is superior, and quite superior at that. So the fact that he can quest for 2 means that he can bodyguard your other characters and still provide a lot of lore. And the 1/3 resist 1 is better than being a 1/4. And if you can get a Mickey Mouse armor on the prince, then suddenly you have a bodyguard that reduces oncoming damage by 2. Or if you have a Cogsworth in play, then your Prince Who Never Gives Up becomes a wall that's actually pretty hard to get through. And with these extra support ability that empowers the resist, the Prince Never Gives Up can become quite a big wall. That's still quest for 2. He's a wall, he's a threat, he's pretty solid. So I'm going to give this card a 4-star rating, maybe surprising myself a little bit there. He looks great, and he's as good as he looks. Next we have Tiana, Celebrating Princess, 1/4/4/4, non-inkable. Quest for 2, with resist 2. Whew, that's a tough cookie to crack. 1/4 with resist 2 for 4. Pretty solid stats. So apart from being a tough quester, what does Tiana do? Well, while she is exerted and you have no cards in hand, the opponent can't play action. That is one powerful ability. Now if you don't think about the cost and just say your opponent can't play action, you can still play actions, but your opponent, no. That's a very, very strong ability. There's been cards like that, like if you think in Pokemon Stadium's Path of Peak negates abilities, or in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's Royal Decree Imperial Order that prevents your opponent from playing one category of cards altogether. This can mess up your opponent's strategy like there's no tomorrow. Now the cost. She must be exerted, so when you play her, doesn't happen. And she needs to be exerted, so she needs to be targetable by combat, so the opponent can always remove her before playing their actions. Alright, so it's not a guarantee, the opponent has a way to remove it. And you need to have no cards in hand, so you're playing in top deck mode, which is not ideal. Ideally, you'd want to have some way of controlling your top decks, or just have a very solid board presence and kind of put your opponent in a lock with Tiana, where if you have like a mouse armor and you can increase Tiana's resistance, then she becomes almost unkillable, and if the opponent can't play actions, which is the other way to deal with Tiana, then the opponent just can't deal with her. And you can play her in multiples. And yeah, I guess it doesn't really help if you play her in multiples. Anyways, so to get no cards in hand, you can use Fishborn Quill, you can use Bell Strange but Special to just add a bunch of cards into your ink pool to control your top decks. You can use Ursula's Cauldron, you can use Beast's Mirror, that also encourages you to have no cards in hand. And suddenly when it's your turn, you use all the ink that you're dumping your cards in the ink pool to draw cards, play those cards. So I think that Tiana is actually going to be a build around into some kind of lock deck, or really just for her raw stats line. 1-4, Quest for 2, Resist 2 is solid. If you ignore the ability, she's still good. And I think she has the potential of being kind of backbreaking. So I'm going to give her a 5-star rating because I think this card is very good at face value just for the stats and brings an ability that is extremely disruptive, and if you can build around right, you can mess up your opponent's strategy pretty good. Here we have Tiana, the Diligent Waitress. 1-3 for 1, Quest for 1. Bad vanilla character. I much prefer the previous Tiana, and this one, well, yeah. Here we have Charge. Chosen character against Challenger +2, Resist +2. Just for this turn. So really it's, I'm going to get a combat in and ideally protect my character and punch above my weight. It's okay. You need to have a good trade already set up, and sometimes Resist 2 just isn't enough. If this was a song, I'd like it a lot, but you have to pay the full card and the full 2 ink for that. And, well, for that price, you can put another character in play. And having a 2-drop character or an extra option to play a character is oftentimes more valuable because it's good on an open board. It's good when the opponent has all of their characters unexerted. While Charge needs, you must have a character, the opponent must have something exerted, and the stats must match in such a way that this card is useful. Seems situational to me. I don't like it. I'm going to give it a 2-star rating. I mean, it's better than a vanilla drop, I think. Is it? Here we have Let the Storm Rage On, a non-inkable 3-drop song that deals 2 damage to any character, and then you get to draw a card. That's interesting. Just for its raw value, it gives me a bit of the 3-drop Maleficent vibe in Amethyst. The 2-2 draw a card on turn 3. So it's a card that replaces itself and has kind of a 2 power associated with it. What I do like about the Storm Rage On is that it's a song, which means that you can essentially cast it for free. And I really mean for free. I mean, you don't pay the ink, and you get a card in exchange. And dealing 2 damage to anything is actually pretty good when it's free. You do have to be careful that it is uninkable, but because you can cycle it for another card, the downside isn't so bad. In particular, it's worth mentioning that Cinderella, the Amber 1-drop, can sing this from turn 2, which is a pretty devastating combination because it can take out a lot of 2-drops and just not miss a beat. So, very strong card. I think this is going to be a potent inclusion in a lot of steel-based decks, and I'm going to give it a 4-star rating because free feels good. Pick a fight. Chosen character can challenge ready characters this turn, and it costs 2 non-inkable. So this is a bad removal spell that forces you to have a creature that's stronger than the opponent's character so you can pick a fight with them. Your character is still going to take damage. This is non-inkable. So at face value, it really feels like a punch in your own face rather than in your opponent's characters. So I don't like that card very much. Now, there are some combo potential, like, for example, if you give Beast Relentless the ability to pick a fight, then you can suddenly pick off all of the opponent's weaker characters that are unexerted. And for these attackers that have this ability, whenever you banish a character, whenever you deal damage, ready yourself again, well, pick a fight's actually a good option to pick off all of the opponent's character where they thought they were safe, keeping them unexerted. If this was inkable, I think it'd be a great flex spot, but as a non-inkable card, you have to think twice about including this in your deck. I'm going to give it a 2-star rating, acknowledging that there is some combo potential with this card. Here we have Strength of Raging Fire. Artwork looks really good. I like this card. Feels like you're just throwing a bunch of fiery rockets at your opponent with tons of kicks, and what's going to survive this? Well, unfortunately, a lot of things. It's a 3-drop song that deals damage to chosen character equal to the number of characters that you have in play. Okay, so let's think about this. If you have 2 characters in play, we've just reviewed an action that'll do that and replace itself by drawing a new card. Ooh, so the floor of this card, is you have no characters in play and you have a useless card. If you have 2 characters in play, this is strictly much worse than another card we've reviewed. So how many characters in play do you need to make this useful? 3? This is just a smash. Well, it's a singable smash, so it becomes a smash with upside. So you need about 3 characters for this to become viable or decent. And typically, your board doesn't get that wide that fast. Well, if you do play some kind of board go wide type of strategy with a Stitch Rockstar, maybe you can use the Strength of a Raging Fire, sing it with your Aerial. Actually, this is fetchable with Aerial, so it might make Amber Steel songs, actually. Just because it's a song, and when you go wide, suddenly you have a nice 3-drop removal spell. Maybe you can alternate between smashes and Strength of a Raging Fire. The more I look at it, the more I'm interested. But maybe it's just the other song is just that good that it eclipsed this card. I'm still going to give Strength of Raging Fire a 3-star rating, and we'll see what it does. We have the last cannon. Better be careful where we aim that thing, because it's costing us a whole card. 1 ink to put in play, and 1 ink to activate the ability to banish it, and then give Challenger 3 to one of our characters. Honestly, it's a disappointing effect. The only deck where I would consider playing the last cannon is if I'm playing some kind of items tribal deck, where having 1-drop items that do essentially nothing is valuable. In which case, last cannon would be an acceptable card to play. So it's a cheap item, and that's about what gives us its 2-star rating. Otherwise, it shouldn't be included in your deck. And even then. Here we have Mouse Armor, one of the coolest design of a card that I've seen. Basically, it's an armored tailor for Mickey Mouse that fits any character. Dragon, Madam Man, doesn't matter. The armor fits. And it's a free activated ability that gives a character resist until the start of your next turn. So you're going to be resistant for combat on this turn, and resistant whenever the opponent plays damaging spells on their turn, whenever the opponent does challenges during their turn. And Mouse Armor can just keep on targeting whichever character you want. As an item, this is probably the strongest item we've seen so far. Now's the time where you go in the comments below and tell me, no, Yoshi, this item is actually stronger. You haven't thought about it. So now's the perfect time. Go and argue in the comments. But back to the Mouse Armor. I've had some experience playing with it on Pixelborn in the laboratory mode, and it's pretty good. It's better than I expected. And when you combine it with cards like Tiana or the Prince Never Gives Up, which already have base resist, adding 1 or 2 extra points of resist on top of that makes these characters almost unkillable and very strong threats. Also, you should always be activating this during your turn. Even if the opponent doesn't have a challenge, you never know when they're going to try and fire the cannon, which then does very little, or when the opponent's going to grab your sword and suddenly the mouse armor protects you and you only take 1 for one of your character. It's a cheap item, probably not a 4 of, because it's not inkable, so you're committing to playing it, but as 2 or 3 copies in selected steel decks, definitely a strong card that's going to be making an impact. It clearly deserves a 4-star rating. It's time to lift, because we have a weight set. That's a 3-drop item, inkable, and whenever you play a character with 4 power or more, you may pay 1 to draw a card. In the famous words of Admiral Agmar, it's a trap. This card looks good because it's card draw turn after turn, but you have to invest a lot to make this work. You have to waste a turn, a card, to play it first, then you have to pay a tax every time you play a big character to draw the extra card, which puts you behind in tempo, both when you play it and every time you play the character to draw the card. The first card just replaces the weight set. It's a bit like a Musketeer's Tabard. You're looking at it and you're like, card draw. I like card draw. But when it comes with a tax, the tax ends up costing you a lot more than you think. So I'm going to give this card a 2-star rating. I mean, it's still card draw, but I don't recommend playing it. I hope that you've enjoyed this set review of the steel cards from Rise of the Floodborn, featuring a lot of cards with resist, a lot of strong cards. I mean, it's steel. Steel is all about strength, power, and trying to be better than the other inks, really. So, let me know in the comments below what you think is your favorite steel card of the set, or the most powerful one according to your taste, or just let me know your favorite and the most powerful one according to what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on decks and gameplay videos that will be coming soon. If you haven't seen the other set reviews, well, go look at my channel. All of the other inks have been covered, and I'm hoping that you'll enjoy them as much as this one, if not more. Again, I hope that you've had a great time. Don't forget to hit the like button on the way out, and I'll see you next time.